money to pay for no DNA test? Is that because?
But this young lady, I don't know nothing about her. I don't know her. He was on his first baby mama. That's who he was messing with at the time when he was messing with my daughter.
Oh,
he was
what
with his
a
first
mess.
baby mama.
It's like y'all playing tic-tac-toe or something. I mean, you just here, there, everywhere. What?
In a courtroom where drama knows no limits, paternity court has seen its share of emotional moments, but nothing compares to when dangerous gangsters or individuals with criminal records take the stand. These aren't typical paternity cases. They're high-stakes confrontations where DNA results can lead to far more than child support. For some, a positive or negative outcome could be life-changing, further complicating fragile family dynamics. These dramatic moments are some of the most unforgettable in paternity court history, with revelations that can change lives forever, making these episodes some of the most gripping and unpredictable yet. Let's jump right in. Our first entry is a truly intriguing case, one of urgency and high stakes. Unlike anything you've ever seen before, at the heart of it, a DNA test could land a Michigan man in jail for unpaid child support. A novel twist that has everyone on edge. Quite the turn of events, wouldn't you agree? In the case of Adams versus Williams, Mr. Adams was in such a precarious position that he couldn't even attend the hearing in person. His mother had to stand in for him because he was under house arrest confined to Flint, Michigan. Facing the threat of imminent arrest for back child support, he appeared via satellite with his mother at his side. This was his final chance to prove that he was not the father and stay out of jail. A last stand to avoid disaster.
Ms. Adams, you say you're here today regarding a matter of extreme urgency.
Yes.
Now, your son, Mr. Adams, is joining us via satellite from Flint, Michigan, because he's been prohibited by law enforcement from leaving your home state. And you claim he's on the verge of being arrested for back child support.
On the other side of the courtroom stood Ms. Williams, resolute in her belief that Mr. Adams was indeed the father. In her mind, all of his legal troubles were his own to bear. After all, in her eyes, he had never played the role of a father. Harsh, but undeniably her truth.
Ms. Williams, you say Mr. Adams is indeed your baby's biological father, and you argue his legal issues are his own fault because he never stepped up for his son.
Yes, Your Honor.
When asked to give a brief history of their relationship, Mr. Adams didn't hold back. He painted a picture of a non-committed relationship that started at a house party, claiming that Ms. Williams had made advances to get intimate with him on the very first date. In his mind, this was all the proof he needed to call her character into question.
No, I really wouldn't call it no relationship. You know, I met her at a house party. She tried to have sex with me on the first date, so that was a judge of character right there.
But you weren't in a committed relationship.
No, Your Honor.
So, Ms. Williams...
Ms. Williams didn't shy away from the facts. She openly admitted their relationship was on and off, even confessing that she had been intimate with other men during that same period, without protection. This admission seemed to bolster the suspicions that Mr. Adams and his mother already harbored.
I mean, no, when we was young at the time, we hooked up on and off, and you know, it just...
So it was just an on and off thing?
Yeah, it was just an on and off thing.
So if it wasn't committed during that time, were you also sleeping with other men as well?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
Without using protection?
Yes.
All right, so the doubts that Mr. Adams and his mother have, they are valid doubts.
It's a possibility.
Adding yet another twist, Ms. Williams revealed that during this time, she had also been in contact with her ex-boyfriend. Initially, when she found out she was pregnant, she believed that he was the father. But after a DNA test proved otherwise, she was forced to consider other possibilities.
You tell him you're pregnant?
Yes.
What happened?
Me and my ex was still trying to make things work, and we were still messing around or whatever, so we just went through that whole year. I was pregnant. I didn't mention him about the baby until I found out it wasn't my ex.
So you didn't even include Mr. Adams in this equation?
No, I didn't.
You thought it was your ex's, and
Yes,
your ex
yes, I
said,
did.
well...
In an effort to put the matter to rest, Ms. Williams eventually reached out to Mr. Adams, requesting a DNA test to establish paternity. However, he declined. Interestingly, she had originally stated that she didn't need child support, but later changed her mind and went to the state, declaring Mr. Adams as the father, with no proof to back her claim.
He may be the father of John.
Okay, but you said, I don't want child support, I don't want any of this, but it got to the point where you needed help, and so you went to the state.
Yes.
And then during that time, you had to name who the potential father could be.
Yes, I did.
And you gave the state his name.
Yes, I did.
The state didn't waste any time in addressing the situation. They swiftly summoned Mr. Adams to court, determined to settle the paternity issue. However, at the time, Mr. Adams was incarcerated, completely unaware of the legal proceedings unraveling around him. Due to his imprisonment, he never received the subpoenas or had the chance to present his side of the story. As a result, without any defense or objection, he was proclaimed the father by default, leaving him to face the full weight of legal responsibility for a child he hadn't even been able to contest.
And then he was ordered to go to court.
Yes, he was.
Mr. Adams, did you go to court?
No, Your Honor. Only due to the fact that I was incarcerated, so I didn't receive any court subpoenas, anything, Your Honor. I was incarcerated.
So you didn't show up that day and you were deemed the
Things quickly escalated from there. Before Mr. Adams could even wrap his head around the situation, his child support debt began to skyrocket. In what felt like the blink of an eye, the amount owed reached a staggering $2,000, and it just kept climbing. With no chance to dispute the claim and already behind bars, the weight of the financial burden seemed insurmountable. His life had taken a drastic turn, and now he was entangled in a legal and financial nightmare that felt impossible to escape.
Why wouldn't I want to show up to my own DNA test to get my son tested? Why wouldn't I? If I knew about it, I would have showed up.
So now the total arrears are over $1,000.
And then came the moment of his dramatic arrest. Completely unaware of the trouble looming over him, Mr. Adams casually walked into a store, and as soon as the police ran his name, bam! He was taken into custody, spending that night and 9 more in jail. But here's the shocking part. The reason he never took the DNA test was because he was too hungover to show up for the appointment.
Mr. Adams, you claim you already spent time in jail for failure to pay support.
Yes, Your Honor.
What happened?
Basically, I was walking to the store to get some cigarettes. Police just ran our names. Now, I didn't even know I had a warrant. So I gave them my name proud, like, I'm Lassiter Adams. I ain't think I had no warrant. Come to find out, he come back to me like, oh, Mr. Adams, you got a warrant for child support. I'm like, what?
Now the stakes couldn't be higher. A DNA confirmation could send one person to jail, while the other party finally gets the closure they've been seeking for years. The results are in who will have the last laugh.
That Mr. Adams is not the father.
Take me off child support, baby.
The next case is nothing short of dramatic. Mr. Redmond Jr. versus Mrs. Patterson. A tale tangled in years of mistrust, debt, and heartache. This one is much more intriguing, as the man in question has been to jail for defaulting on child support, racking up a debt to the tune of $10,000 and even more. That's a lot, you'll agree. But Mr. Redmond believed, without an iota of doubt, that both his daughters were not his biological children. As far as he was concerned, the child support wasn't his to pay, and with that belief, he felt justified.
Thank you, Jerome. Good day, everyone.
Good day.
Mr. Redmond, you currently owe more than $10,000 in child support for the defendant's 2 teenage daughters, LaQuandria Redmond and Kaisha Redmond, who you say are not yours. Is that correct?
On the other side of the courtroom, Ms. Patterson stood firm, speaking with 100% certainty that the children were indeed Mr. Redmond's. She was confident the DNA results would settle it once and for all. A grand slam in her favor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Patterson, you say you are 100% certain that both girls are his daughters, and you cannot wait to prove the truth.
For over 19 years, Mr. Redmond had provided for the children, but in that time, his child support dues climbed up to an overwhelming $16,000.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is $16,198 in child support that you owe.
So where did the doubts come from? Ms. Patterson stated firmly that nothing could have sparked such suspicion, but Mr. Redmond came prepared. He wasn't about to walk away quietly. Armed with his evidence, he was ready to prove that his ex-wife had cheated on him multiple times, contrary to her claims.
You say they are his children.
They are his, ma'am. I never cheated on
And
them.
She's untrustworthy, Your Honor. I've caught her cheating on me numerous amount of times.
So wait, you submitted evidence to the court.
Yes, Your Honor.
Step forward so I can have you explain this evidence you have in the...
His first piece of evidence? A picture of Ms. Patterson and her friend in the bathroom, pants down, caught red-handed. Like a thief caught in the act, the man fumbled to adjust his clothes, but it was too late. He'd been seen.
And he had his pants down.
That is a lie.
When
That is a
I
lie.
walked into the bathroom, Your Honor, his pants was down, and he quickly tried to pull them up, and
That
she
is
stood up.
a lie.
What?
Yes, Your Honor.
That is a
Is it when
lie.
you all were dating?
Yes, Your Honor.
Oh.
Naturally, Ms. Patterson denied it all, calling the accusation a blatant lie.
You're saying that's not true?
That's not true.
So what's
Mr.
this
Redmond
next
is
picture?
lying.
But Mr. Redmond wasn't done. Next came Exhibit B, a photo of Mr. Redmond arriving home after work, only to spot a tall, dark-skinned man walking away from their apartment.
From work, Your Honor, this was when we was married. Your Honor, I rode bicycle in the cold to go to work. Your Honor, when I got home, it was a tall, dark-skinned man walking out of my apartment.
Once again, when confronted, Ms. Patterson denied knowing anyone who looked like that. "He's always accusing me," she exclaimed.
That is not true, Your
Miss
Honor.
Patterson, do you
That is
know
not-
anyone that looks like that?
No, Your Honor, I really don't. In his mind, I was with everybody.
So you're saying he just constantly accuses you?
Yes, ma'am.
Also, Your Honor,
Still, Mr. Redmond wasn't finished. He was armed to the teeth. Exhibit C followed, a secret recording captured from an air vent in his apartment. On that recording, groans and moans from his bedroom, a place where no other man should be.
I placed a secret tape recorder in the air vent at my apartment after I caught the dark-skinned fellow coming out of my apartment. The trust was gone, so I put the tape recorder inside the air vent.
So that's your tape recorder. You put it in the air vent.
Yes, ma'am.
So you could record what was going on in your
In the
house?
bedroom. Yes, sure. I heard moaning and groaning. I heard a man's voice in my room, in my bedroom.
Ms. Patterson, of course, had her own version. She admitted there was indeed a recording, but claimed it was just static. No groaning or moaning whatsoever. Talk about chaos trying to decipher the truth from fiction. Wouldn't you agree?
In that bedroom, Your Honor.
Miss Patterson, do
Yes,
you
he did.
remember any of this?
I remember the tape recording. Nothing was on it. He played it. The only thing you could hear was,
Just when the court thought they'd seen it all, another bombshell dropped. Mr. Redmond described a disturbing scene at Ms. Patterson's workplace. He had visited her, only to find her in bed with another man. Disheartened, he left without saying a word.
The front people told me where she was at, how to find her location. I went back there to find the location that they told me to go to.
Okay.
I observed Ms. Patterson in the bed with another man.
Oh,
on top of the man.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
Wait, so this is you observing.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you confront her?
I didn't confront her, Your Honor. I was so hurt and discouraged. I walked away, got in my car, and left.
And predictably, Ms. Patterson responded in the same way. Complete denial. "I have no idea what he's talking about," she declared.
I would have lost my job. Your Honor, I don't know what he's talking about.
Oh, but there's more. Mr. Redmond described yet another encounter, this time at Ms. Patterson's hometown. He claimed to have walked in on her, sitting comfortably on another man's lap. But once again, Ms. Patterson dismissed the claim as fiction. It was a pendulum swinging back and forth between these two.
When we was in her hometown, I creeped up on her at her family's house. When I got there, Your Honor, I went round the back where they usually be, and I observed Miss Patterson drinking beer, smoking cigarettes, sitting on another man's lap.
You thought maybe he could be her father because she was having a relationship with him as well?
Yes, ma'am.
One thing that baffled the court, though, was that Mr. Redmond never denied being the children's father, at least not until Ms. Patterson left him. That's quite a long time to be harboring doubts, don't you think?
So when did he really start denying the children?
When I left him.
After what felt like endless back and forth, the court decided to bring the children in. They were asked the all-important question, did they have any recollection of Mr. Redmond being a father to them? Their answer was as shocking as shock could get. They had none, not a single memory of him as their father. For 19 years, Ms. Patterson had played both roles, mom and dad.
Mr. Redmond.
Nothing at all.
Really?
Yes.
And you've been told this is your father?
Yes, I have been told that he was my father, but this is my father right here because she has been here my whole entire life.
And so you have no relationship with Mr. Redmond?
Not at all.
How about you, Kaisha?
No, ma'am.
Things took a turn for the worse when Mr. Redmond made a stunning claim. He stated that he'd had the children, but that they were kidnapped by their mother.
The kids were kidnapped from me when they were in my custody, she came back and stole the kids from me. She kept them away from me so that I would not be able to have a relationship with these kids. Then I found out when
Why is you sitting here lying?
This accusation didn't sit well with the children. They immediately erupted in defense of their mother, standing firmly against Mr. Redmond's claim. To make matters worse, they revealed how they struggled to make ends meet, hustling from hand to mouth, with no support from their father.
My mama ain't never had kidnapped us. She the one that signed them birth certificates. You ain't signed nothing. You paid child support 1 or 2 times. You think that's gonna do something? It ain't gonna do nothing. You don't help my mama pay bills. You don't help us with anything. I have to come out my pocket and help pay rent. You don't do nothing.
The ruckus in the courtroom was overwhelming. Judge Lauren, seeing the tension, decided to bring it all to an end. The time had come to reveal the DNA results and put everyone out of their misery.
Mr. Redmond, you are the father.
We both look alike.
Mr. Redmond, you are the father.
Now you come on.
Next up is a case of father versus daughter, Lapine versus Lapine. One of the most dramatic cases, to be honest, where a grown woman seeks to discover her biological father just before her wedding. Let's dive right in. For 30 years, Ms. Brandy Lapine believed that Mr. Richard Lapine was her father, until a bombshell was spilled over dinner. A family member casually mentioned that Richard may not be her biological dad. Shocking, right?
Thank you, Jerome. Good day, everyone.
Good day.
Ms. Lapine, you say for the past 30 years, you'd always believed the defendant, Mr. Lapine, was your dad.
Yes, Your Honor.
Then just months ago at a family dinner, you were told by a family member he's not your biological father.
On the other hand, Mr. Lapine had spent years in jail for unpaid child support, and this battle over paternity could destroy his life again. The stakes were high. If Brandy isn't his daughter, he might return to prison.
Discover the truth.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Lapine, you say you've spent years in jail for unpaid child support, and your life has been turned upside down.
Yes, Your Honor.
Tomorrow, you have yet another court date.
Yes, Your Honor.
You claim you could be locked up again if today's results prove you are indeed Miss Lapine's biological father.
Yes, Your Honor.
The news hit Brandy like an unwelcome surprise. Picture it. Everyone was enjoying dinner, chatting about family, until one relative suddenly remarked that Brandy and Richard didn't even look alike. What a way to shatter the mood. The beauty of the evening crashed right then and there.
Saying that, well, you don't know if he's your dad or not because you don't look like your dad.
Curious but cautious, Brandy asked another family member for clarity, but they shrugged it off, claiming it wasn't the time or the place.
What did you say?
I went to another family member and asked if this was true, and they just told me that this was not the time or place to talk about it and just shrugged it off.
Wow. So did you reach out to your father?
Unable to contain the growing doubt, Brandy turned to her father for the truth, and his response, that there was indeed a possibility, just enough to water the seeds of uncertainty that had been planted in her mind.
Yes.
And what did you say?
I called him the next day and asked him if it was true, and my father said that that guy was around at the time, so then he started questioning it.
So hold on, they gave you a name?
Gave me a name.
For all those years, Richard had believed Brandy to be his daughter. He'd even served 4 to 5 years in jail for child support. But now, the question of paternity had been raised, and worse still, he was at risk of returning to jail for unpaid child support. Pathetic, to say the least.
For 30 years, all this time, you believe this young girl was your daughter?
Yes, ma'am. And I've been 4 to 5 years in jail, and it gets rough.
4 to 5 years in jail.
Yes, ma'am.
For unpaid child support.
Yes, ma'am.
For a young woman that calls you and then says, some family member told me you may not even be my biological father.
Yes, Your Honor.
You actually have a court date tomorrow.
1:30 tomorrow afternoon.
Following this breaking news, Richard began piecing the timeline together, counting the months back to when his wife was pregnant. The more he reflected, the more unaccounted for months surfaced. 2 or 3 months where something didn't quite add up. His doubts solidified.
After you learned her mother was pregnant,
I went all the way back. I thought about everything after that.
what were your revelations?
I counted back months. I was like, wait a minute, there's a month or 2 here that I wasn't even down there, and she's supposed to be pregnant at this time.
You started doing some math and you felt like it didn't add up.
Yes, ma'am.
You said, well, the window of conception would have been around this time, and
Yes, ma'am. Exactly.
this may or may not be mine.
Yes, ma'am.
Interestingly, Richard had no reason to believe his wife was cheating on him while they were together. But after their separation, he began hearing rumors that she had been intimate with some of his friends and other men. This only fueled his doubts.
After me and her separated, I was told by friends of mine that they had slept with her and other people.
Wow. So
to add salt to injury, Brandy didn't resemble Richard at all, unlike her sister Jennifer, who looked like the spitting image of their father.
Ms. Lapine, do you feel like she looks?
No, ma'am, she looks nothing like me. And the dark
But your
skin,
other daughter, you claim, looks like you.
dark hair, dark skin, skinny, looks identical to me.
Jennifer revealed that as they grew up, family members would often make random jokes and tease them, saying one of them was the milkman's baby.
When did you hear about there being any doubt?
I mean, we were always teased about it, but
Who would tease you?
it's just different family members. So
What would they say?
it was just things like, oh, well, you're the milkman's baby, you know, stuff like that. It's just been, you know, after so many years, you think something and then it comes out and then you see it affect everybody. It's not just.
To prove her point further, Jennifer presented a family photo showing herself, Richard, and Brandy. The resemblance was unmistakable. Jennifer looked like Richard, while Brandy didn't.
And you feel like you strongly resemble your father,
Right.
but Brandy does not.
Right.
When you look at this picture, Brandy,
Brandy, however, had always assumed that she just looked more like her mother, but shared Richard's personality. After all, kids don't always look like both parents, right? Simple logic.
I look like my mom, but I always thought I had my dad's attitude.
okay, that's fair.
I always thought that, but I mean, as you could tell, no, we don't look nothing alike, but.
Then came the emotional tidal wave. The rain of tears began when Brandy hinted at all the moments her father had missed in her childhood. 10 years of absence.
But where was he when he wasn't in jail?
I left.
Richard and Brandy's mother had broken up when Brandy was just 3 years old, and when she asked him to leave, he never looked back. He was out of their lives for a decade.
And how old was Miss Lapine then? How old was your daughter?
3. I just packed my stuff and left. Now I wish I'd never left.
So, Mr. Lapine, you have regrets
Yes, ma'am.
because you feel like you let your daughters down?
I did let them down, and I'm sorry. I wish I'd never left. I wasn't worried about what their mom had to say.
Despite the sorrowful cloud hanging over this lost time, Richard's life wasn't entirely bleak. He found some joy after his separation, meeting Ms. Linda Opfer, who stood by him for 26 years, helping him build a new family with 4 kids.
Linda Opfer.
Thank you for joining us today, ma'am. I see you're very emotional as well.
It's been hard because every time Richard goes to jail, and not only do Brandy and Jennifer lose their father again, but also my 4 children.
And to be clear, you all are in a relationship.
26 years.
Yes, ma'am.
26 years.
Still, the looming jail sentence and the uncertainty surrounding his paternity have been a heavy weight on the entire family, both his new family and his extended one. Now the time had come to face their worst fear. Would he go to jail again?
Mr. Richard Lapine, you are her father. The next result pertains to Brandy. Mr. Richard Lapine is not your biological father.
In this next entry, Richiel versus Harris, we dive into a case between a couple and another woman who has been eating her cake and having it too. Let's unpack the details. Ms. Richiel came before the court with one goal: to determine the biological father of her 4-year-old daughter, Jasmine. But in what stands as a surprising twist, one man had signed the birth certificate while another was paying child support. How does that even happen?
Hello, Your Honor. This is a case of Richiel versus Harris.
Thank you, Jerome.
You're welcome.
Good day, everyone. Ms. Rochelle, you are desperate to determine the biological father of your 4-year-old daughter, Jasmine. You confess that one man signed your daughter's birth certificate, yet another man is paying child support.
Mr. Harris was the potential father who had been paying support for a child he was convinced wasn't his. As worrisome as that sounds, this was only the tip of the iceberg. He spent 2 months in jail for owing $6,000 in delinquent support payments, and that's what pushed them all to their breaking point.
Now, Mr. Harris, you're the potential father who is paying support for a child you believe is not yours.
Yes, Your Honor.
Furthermore, you and your wife are furious that you spent 2 months in jail for $6,000 in delinquent support payments.
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, we'll address the potential father number 2.
Here's the kicker. Ms. Ritchie and Mr. Harris lived on the same street, which is how they met and started a sexual relationship. Ms. Ritchie believed it was something real, something that would stand the test of time. But oh, how wrong she was.
I was living across the street from him, and I seen him standing out there, and I was like, oh, he is fine.
Okay, so you guys met, and at some point you started a sexual relationship.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so you were in just a sexual relationship, or you all were boyfriend and girlfriend, a committed relationship? What was it?
Well, he had said that we could be together, so therefore he had me thinking we were together, but
it was just a hookup, that's all it was.
Mr. Harris, on the other hand, had a very different perspective on the situation. He wasted no time in denying any sort of commitment, emphatically declaring that his encounter with the mother of the child was nothing more than a hookup, an impulsive and casual connection that happened without any forethought. He insisted it was the most random of flings, characterized by a lack of emotional involvement or intention. In his eyes, this was merely a fleeting moment in time, devoid of any significance or responsibility. Harris's swift dismissal of the relationship added another layer of tension to the courtroom, as his nonchalant attitude clashed with the gravity of the circumstances surrounding the paternity dispute.
All right, so Mr. Harris, you claim this was not a relationship.
It's not.
But you do admit to having a sexual relationship with Miss Rochelle.
When Ms. Rachel got pregnant, instead of reaching out to Mr. Harris, she contacted the other man. This man signed the birth certificate and was present throughout the pregnancy and birth.
I contacted the other guy.
And so did this other man sign the birth certificate when the baby was born?
Yes, he did.
Oh, Jerome, let me see that. So this other man was with you through the pregnancy?
Yes, he was.
And he was there at the birth too?
Yes, Your Honor.
And signed the birth certificate?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
But despite not being involved, Mr. Harris found himself dragged into this tangled web of legalities. He missed his DNA testing appointment, and as a result, he was declared the father by default. This unexpected turn of events left him in a precarious situation, as he now faced the harsh reality of being legally responsible for child support. Ridiculous, right? Harris was astounded that a single missed appointment could lead to such significant consequences, further igniting his frustration and disbelief. The weight of this sudden responsibility hung over him, intensifying the already dramatic atmosphere of the courtroom.
Appointment for your DNA test.
Yeah, that's how it happened. I missed my DNA appointment. I rescheduled it because I didn't have a way to get there. So I had another appointment, but I didn't make that one also. So they just deemed me as the father without actually having
yeah,
the DNA.
you were named the father by default because you failed to show up for your DNA test.
Not long after, the situation escalated. Mr. Harris was hauled off to jail. His records were pulled, and it was revealed that he owed $6,000 in child support. He ended up spending 2.5 months behind bars over something he believed was not his responsibility.
They came to the house. At first, I thought I was arrested because of traffic tickets, because that's what the police told me. But once I got to the jail, they actually pulled up my record and said that I owe like $6,000 back in child support. So I guess I owe for over.
After hearing the intense drama from both sides, Judge Lauren felt it was finally time to get to the truth. The moment of reckoning had arrived. Tensions ran high as she prepared to unveil the reality behind the conflicting claims. Was the child really Mr. Harris's, the man now facing child support obligations? Or was it the other individual, the one who had signed the birth certificate? With the stakes higher than ever, all eyes were on the judge, who knew that her announcement would impact lives forever. The courtroom held its breath as the air thickened with anticipation, ready to discover the identity of the child's true father. Let's see the results.
Mr. Harris, you are the father.
I don't want to deal with her for 14 more years. She harasses us on the phone. She calls us all the time.
Jerome, get me my violin.
So
I can play a tune to this.